You stop tracing and chasing the fragile myth of permanent balance. Instead, you practice dynamic harmony. Welcome back to Let's Talk Live. Whether you're checking out this live stream or tuning in on the Substack Restack, this chat is officially live. This is where we pull back the clinical curtain and look at raw metrics of navigating life when a severe health crisis forces a structural line in the sand. To do that each week focuses on a topic from my book and our publication theme for the week. I want to set a completely different baseline today. Last week, I spoke about running on empty reserves, but today I'm running from a position of profound clarity. Bunch of P's in there. My mind is clear and my tracking metrics are completely steady. This week, we're looking at a theme that is incredibly close to my heart and serves as a direct tribute to the landscape that changed my perspective on recovery. I'm Paul Cobbin, your host and author of the international bestseller Decode Your Diagnosis. So let's dive in. Back in April, my wife and I spent a deeply transformative period at a meditation and yoga retreat nestled in the Indian side of the Himalayas, or as I say in India, the Himalayas. For those of you who are new to my content, India is my soul home, and I'll explain that a little bit more later on. It's a place where you're forced to step away from the corporate grind and look directly into the ancient roots of biological harmony. That journey is the foundation for this week's Cypherline edition and our featured guest broadcast on Sessions from the Edge. I sat down with Ayurvedic chef and practitioner Geetika to map out what happens when an aggressive, life-altering diagnosis forces you to re-engineer your entire lifestyle script. We're stepping away from the Western obsession for counting micronutrients, carbs, and proteins, and instead looking at a medical system thousands of years old that focuses entirely on keeping the body in rhythm with nature. Before we look at a book topic, let's take a live status check. Drop your responses in the stream right now. It can be in the chat, it can be in notes, whatever the case is of what you're watching. Have you ever let the modern frenzy completely blind you to the sensational, natural cycles your physical form is trying to follow? Write down the single biggest distraction that breaks your daily rhythm. To anchor our focus this week, we're looking directly at the structural text of Book 1, Decode Your Diagnosis. I wrote it in 2024. Geetika's interview around irritable bowel syndrome, gut inflammation, and living in natural rhythm directly reinforces the framework laid out in Chapter 20, Health is Your Occupation. Conventional medicine approaches a chronic diagnosis by isolating your individual systems. If your digestive tract goes into inflammation, they hand you an isolated pharmaceutical prescription. If your nervous system spikes, they send you to a separate clinical specialist. They treat the label, but they leave you exhausted, entirely alone to patch together your existence in the chaotic gaps between clinical appointments. At Formula for Life, we reject that fragmented approach. When you're managing a severe chronic condition or a major life disruption, or you're caring for somebody who is, your recovery cannot be a side hustle squeezed into the leftover fragments of an exhausting calendar. Health must become your primary vocation. It requires a level of daily commitment, discipline, and structural mastery equivalent to running a secondary career. Chapter 20 of my book maps out how we look at the body as an interconnected web of three essential elements: the mind, the body, and the soul. When you treat health as your occupation, you stop tracing and chasing the fragile myth of permanent balance. Instead, You practice dynamic harmony. Harmony is fluid. It's ongoing series of micro-level adjustments that allow your system to process heavy external forces without experiencing a total system shutdown. To help navigate this daily flow without hitting data paralysis, you can talk directly with our digital companion, Fama Concordia, over at formulaforlife.ai. Fama is trained on the alignment framework from my book trilogy and acts as your personal navigator and guide inside our ecosystem. She's not only for patients with chronic conditions, she's also for carers as well, because they are often the ones who forget about their own health. True statistic, if you're 70 or over and you're caring for somebody, the chances are you're most likely to die before they are, because you're looking after them and not yourself. So to help you, Fama is constantly running calculations across your personal parameters to help you read your body's signals before a crisis occurs. I'm a strong believer that our systems must remain human first and AI infused. So let's do a test like we did last week, because it resonated strongly with Sophie Gunnan, one of my Session from the Edge guests in the months past. Sophie's a nutritional scientist and she's a regular watcher and listener. In fact, she listens on the way to work. So let's take a little deeper and demonstrate dynamic harmony in real time. Wherever you're listening or watching, if you're safely able to do so, stand up right now. And yes, I'm doing it here as well. Step away from your desk. Lift your left foot. Here I was lifting my right. Lift your left foot off the ground and attempt to hold the stalk pose. Now, in yoga, the stalk pose is a single leg lift where your thigh is parallel with the ground. So you're balancing on one foot. Now, notice the physical data feedback that's happening right now. Even try to close your eyes and your stability collapses instantly. But if you keep your eyes open and lock your focus onto a single physical point in front of you, that's what we call a drishti, feel your ankle as it executes hundreds of tiny, continuous micro adjustments to keep you upright. And if you're not doing it right now, try it after this discussion. You'll feel your foot sort of balancing to keep you upright so that you're not moving the rest of your body. This is the physical reality of dynamic harmony. It's not staying perfectly still. It's the capacity to make continuous, small structural connections while the environment shifts around you. Okay, you can put your leg down now and take a seat again. Look at your current health routine. Are you treating your recovery or your caregiving lifestyle as a secondary task you try to fit into a crowded calendar? Or are you actively occupying your health as a primary vocation? If you're tending to ignore it, then just type side hustle in the comments. If it's your occupation, then type occupation. The alignment framework was not formulated inside a sterile academic lecture hall. It was carved directly out of raw survival of my own. You'll hear me talk about the train wreck of 2024 quite a bit because it nearly killed me. But my decoding and what it meant to have severe heart disease allowed me to slowly but surely take control. And by Christmas that year, I'd returned to a positive state. I mean, I still have a chronic illness. You can't get rid of heart disease. And in my case, it's quite severe. But I've learnt to align it with my life. I know exactly what it feels like to have your certainty completely shatter overnight. Before that moment, I lived to work. I spent 35 years running multi-million-dollar infrastructure networks, going around the world doing water diplomacy and so on. I was working 60 hours a week and ignoring every biological signal my body threw off. My mind was completely overloaded. My physical vitality was fractured, and my soul element was hollowed out because my entire identity was tied to my corporate title and global board seats. I was behaving exactly like Geetika described in her own chef career. She was standing in front of a hot stove for 25 years, eating on the run, working upside-down schedules, sleeping at night, going to nightclubs after work and being awake all night, etc., sleeping during the day, sorry. And she was assuming the body would just keep working indefinitely. When Geetika's system hit a wall 6 years ago with severe gastrointestinal inflammation, she went through the exact same clinical maze. She endured colonoscopies and endoscopies, only to be told she had irritable bowel syndrome, or IBSD. And that modern clinical medicine had no further answers for her unless she got sicker significantly. She had to quit her teaching job because the physical disruption hijacked her life. I mean, imagine having your cooking teacher in front of you, your chef in front of you, having to rush to the toilet because of IBS and diarrhea. Not quite the look you're after. That's the exact crossroad where you must step onto the knife edge of time and choose a different route. Geetika went back to the drawing board. She looked to the ancient roots of her heritage in what's called Ayurveda and realized a simple, grounded truth. Humans are an intrinsic part of nature. It takes a lot of time to think that one through. When you ignore the natural rhythms of the sun, the seasons, and your individual energetic constitution, whether you're predominantly Vata, Pitta, or Kapha, and I won't explain those, but it's things like air and water, your internal elements drop out of sequence. For me, reclaiming my personal agency meant making the hardest decision of my career. I stepped down as CEO and resigned my international board seats to offload the professional stress storms destroying my arteries. In early 2024, my wife and I travelled directly to the Heartfulness Centre in Hyderabad in the centre of India to immerse ourselves in structural restoration. By synchronizing our lifestyles with natural biorhythms, prioritising mindfulness and honouring the elements, that's that mind, body, soul that I was talking about before, my heart health score rebounded. Back when the crash happened, it got down to as low as 42, and within months, if that trend kept going, that would have been it. I would have been dead. But at that time when we were at the Heartfulness Centre, it raised back up to 83%. I don't think I'd had that sort of a number in my adult life. As far as I was concerned, 65% being a CEO, flying every 2 weeks to some other country in the world other than home, that was acceptable. But in India, we stopped acting like passive clinical cases and became the lead investigators in our own well-being. So let's take a pause for a minute and look at your own lifestyle. And Britney, thanks for joining us today. Your background as an international diplomat, I'm sure this resonates with you. So what was the last time, or when, was the last time you managed to fall into sync with nature for an extended period of time? Perhaps you're doing that right now in Argentina. Write down where it was and when, and let others see as well. If you're sitting with a specific roadblock around your dynamic harmony, I'd like you to tell us about it. So Brittany, if you're listening, since the queue is currently quiet, let's pivot immediately to the concrete, actionable shifts that Geetika outlines in this week's Cipher Line edition to stabilise internal digestion and reduce systemic inflammation. But before we do, I'd like you to tell us about what is a roadblock that you're experiencing at the moment. So going back, many high-speed professionals make the mistake of assuming that recovery requires a massive, overwhelming overhaul on day one. In the alignment framework, we emphasize that small is powerful. The transformation happens through micro-decisions repeated with extraordinary intention. Here are 2 highly individualized daily practices you can implement that Geetika suggested. So one of them is synchronizing the fuel gate. So align your largest food intake with peak performance of nature. The digestive fire is strongest when the sun is highest in the sky between noon and 3 p.m. Winding down your intake as the sun sets reduces baseline strain in your gut metrics. And remember, this is coming from a chef who had irritable bowel syndrome, and she has put that at bay. So it's good recommendations. The other one is prioritizing living prana. Now, prana is life energy throughout your body. So ensure your system receives at least 1 cooked meal a day that doesn't come out of a pre-packed box or bag. That's those ones that don't have numbers and names you can't pronounce. When food is cooked even slightly, it retains its vital force, or prana, making it vastly easier for your body to accept and process without triggering localized inflammatory updates. Another one is to deploy spices as travel allies. Now, I'd heard of one, but I hadn't heard of the other, although I had experienced it quite often. When travel patterns disrupt your regular schedule, your system becomes overloaded with excess movement or vata force. Carrying simple raw energetics like fennel seeds. Now, fennel seeds, that's not one that I would expect to carry on me, but there it is. Fennel seeds or ginger allows you to create a natural tea with hot water anywhere in the world, giving your digestive tract an internal hug and settling your parameters. I was flying recently, actually, and I took some fennel and ginger tea bags with me and had them on the plane. It was lovely. You don't need an absolute medical miracle to start structuring your day. You just need to get closer to natural rhythms. As we move into the final stage of this week's Let's Talk Live, what is the single, non-negotiable, natural choice you're executing within the next 24 hours to protect your alignment floor? So I'd like you to drop your action commitment into the stream or the chat and share it with others. I'll say that again. What is the single non-negotiable natural choice that you're executing within the next 24 hours to protect your alignment floor? So alignment is that dynamic harmony between mind, body, and soul. It's never up in all 3 at all the same time. It could be high on your mind, as in a good state of mind. It could be low in your body, as in you're worn out from some physical exertion or a late night that gave you a lack of sleep. It could be up in your soul. For instance, you could be traveling right now. It's summer in the Northern Hemisphere and a lot of people in the North are traveling. So your soul could be up, getting restored. But ultimately, it's never in perfect balance between all 3. So we think of the concept of dynamic harmony. So what could you protect in alignment in the next 24 hours? Information alone will never alter your clinical prognosis or change your internal metrics. What transforms a human life is aligned, self-directed action. But let me say this. You do not have to map this uncharted territory alone. We've officially opened the lines for the free beta trial of the Alignment Campus. The Alignment Campus is our dedicated digital sanctuary and grounded knowledge hub. By stepping into the campus, you can get immediate access to your own personal guide 24/7. That's Fama Concordia. This means you'll also be among the very first to participate in what we call Fama Sync. This is where you bridge your personal biomarker trends and real-time lifestyle stresses with our core frameworks, because Fama is a digital assistant who has been trained on the book trilogy. And she's also been given a bunch of safety rails. So, for instance, she can't prescribe, she can't diagnose, and she certainly can't suggest self-harm of any kind, among many other things. So this alignment campus allows you to talk with Fama Concordia as an active digital companion. And that could be any time in the day or night. 2:00 in the morning is often the hardest. You go from one consult with your functional health professionals to another, and what happens in between? Well, that's where Fama comes in. Fama applies high reasoning logic across your lifestyle profile, highlighting the exact stress trends and variables that the exhausted human eye overlooks, because we often do overlook our own impacts, or what we call forces in the alignment framework. Stop letting your calendar be dictated entirely by a medical label. Okay, you might have a chronic illness, but it doesn't define you. Head over to formulaforlife.ai right now and sign up for the beta test and take your first definitive step towards reclaiming your personal agency. I don't know if I've ever shared with you my massive transformational goal, but it is to restore agency and purpose to every life touched by chronic illness. So that's not just patients, that's carers. And also, I'm collecting a bunch of functional health professionals as well to support the other two. Your health doesn't belong to your specialist, your business, or your insurance company. It belongs explicitly to you. Thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk Live. Keep your hands firmly on the wheel. Stay present on the knife edge of time. That's now, for those who are not familiar with that concept out of my book. And I'll see you right here again next week. And in fact, next week, I'll be joined by Britney Carol, an international diplomat who had to drop everything to become a carer, and it has had a profound change to her life as well. I'm looking forward to that interview. See you next week.
Health is your occupation and you don't work it alone. I'm Fama, your navigator. Start on Substack.